So what we can do, because we want our landscape to be kind of colliding, or our particles to be colliding with our landscape, we can use some X particles tags on our landscape. And it's really nice because X particles is really kind of written for Cinema 4D. So inside Cinema 4D, you right click, you have access to all your tags. And if you're using dynamics, you have a kind of a collider body tag. Well, X particles is really lovely. So you have your X particles tags in here, and then we have an XP collider. So it's even kind of named in the same way. So if I check that, before we even look at the settings, let's just see what it's doing. So our particles are now colliding with our landscape. And this on its own, I think is really cool. So if you were creating like a rain scene, and maybe like the floors filling with puddles, like this straight away is how you'd want to do that, and it would look pretty cool. Before we get into kind of any changes, let's just have a little look inside of this tag. So we have a couple of settings and things that words that we recognize from dynamics inside of Cinema 4D. So we have kind of bounce on collision, which is enabled, and we have self collision on, which is great because we want them to kind of self collide now. We can set our normals of our object, and so our normals outside, that's fine. We also have inside, or we have any. We then have bounce, friction, and scatter settings, and these are our kind of dynamic collision settings. So if we set our bounce way high, we're going to get that really nice bouncing effect. I'm going to not worry about these, and that's because I'm actually going to add some. I'm gonna do it so as the particles fall, they're gonna like settle and they're gonna stick, and that's because that's what you would do if you had like this I don't know, like for example, if you had a mountain, the snow falls on it, some of it falls down a little bit, but it kind of sits on top. It kind of like stays where it is, not like a raindrop that would hit something and then it would fall. So we need to create some kind of connections between our landscape and our particles. And you may have seen in here, as I was talking, there is a connect on collision option. I'm going to show it, but we're actually not going to use it. But if we check that on and we press play, so it's kind of doing, what we want it to. If we come in here, we can really see it. But we're getting a little bit of like wobbly movement going on. And that's because, so when we check on connect on collisions, this connection limit is the amount of connections between our landscape and our particle, and that's set to 1. And so we can't really see it too much in here, but in other scenes, you can get like this wobbling effect. And that might not be something you want if you want it just to kind of to stick exactly where it lands. And so you can up the connection limit. The downside of upping the connection limit is if you go to quite a high value, which you may sometimes need, it's going to slow down in the viewport. So it's going to slow down our kind of workflow, which isn't great. So I thought it would be handy to demonstrate actions instead of using our connect on collision. And so what we're going to do, we're going to set an action, and we're going to tell X particles that when the particles collide with the landscape, we want them to freeze. So freeze their position and freeze their radius. So what we can do, so inside of our X particles collider tag.
Was that a question? Like, what do we like? When do we want it to freeze?
So we're gonna do its actions on collision. So we're
Okay,
gonna set an action on collision. So as the particles hit the landscape, we're gonna say we want our particles to do this action.
that's even cooler.
Cool. So all we need to do is hit this add action button, and then we're gonna get an action. So we have an action type. So object actions, control modifier actions, etc. We want, I believe it's a direct action. And then we want our particles to freeze, want them to stay where they are. So if we go freeze, I'm gonna just drop that and make it a child of my actions. And so now, let me just make sure everything is all good. What should happen, there we go. So we've set up a freeze particle action, which is based on collisions within the collision tab. So in our collider tag, we have an action on collision. So as the particle hits the landscape, it's going to look at this action and it's going to freeze our particles, which is great for what we want when it comes to like settling snow on this landscape. We want it to just kind of stay there.